I am absolutely delighted to have with us today Jeremy LePoidevin. Now, Jeremy is the owner of Practical Magic, and Practical Magic is a magic shop that has been running for 20 years now. But not only does Jeremy run a fantastic magic shop, he also is the organizer of a hugely successful children's entertainers convention here in the UK called Trix in the Stix. Welcome to Kids Entertainer Podcast, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Colette, and hello, everybody.
It's wonderful to have you here, Jeremy, and I have got hold of you a mere couple of weeks, is it, since the last Trix? Maybe 2-3 weeks?
It's exactly 2 weeks, yes.
2 weeks, fantastic. How good is that for timing? And I was very honoured to be able to be there again this year. It was fantastic. And Jeremy, I know that tickets have gone on sale a week ago.
And they went 5 days ago, and there were 240 tickets available. They sold out in 2 hours.
Wow. I know that Trix is hugely popular and that children's entertainers line up. They line up to get into the next event. So, Jeremy, what makes a convention so successful? What is your secret?
I think there are quite a few things that work in its favour. If you think about most magic conventions, and I'll say this just for those who've never been to one, because there'll be entertainers out there who have not been specifically magically orientated, most conventions are a mixture of lectures and dealers. Sometimes they will throw in workshops as well, but that is the usual pattern. Dealers are open during the day, and at odd times there are lectures going on specific areas. When we were planning Trix in the Stix, and we've just had the third one, we wanted to try and do something a little different. The event actually starts on a Monday, late afternoon, early evening, and all day Tuesday. Tuesday is the day which is given over, as it were, to instruction. We have some things called power presentations, which are very short 15-minute talks, rather like the TED Talks, which are so popular on the internet. A very specific topic explored in some depth, very meaty. So we have power presentations, we have some lectures, we have dealers. That is what happens on the Tuesday, but in addition, on the Monday, we have a series of events which are purely light-hearted. There is no attempt at instruction at all. So to begin with, the person who works very closely with us, John Kimmons, who's an outstanding children's entertainer, John and I do what is called a live fireside chat, in which we discuss, in a rather irreverent way, topics that will be of interest to children's entertainers. And I ought to make it clear that Trix in the Stix is a convention purely aimed at the children's entertainer. Then following on from that, we have a cabaret, and that is not specifically geared towards children's entertainers. It is simply a cabaret for entertainment. That goes on for about an hour and a half. After that, we have a rather anarchic show called the Breakaway One Show, where more or less anything goes, and it's a collection of sketches. The whole idea of the Monday is to get people in a party mood so that they can socialize, have fun, have a laugh, and it's the meeting of like minds which is as important as any of the lectures that we put on.
Oh, well, no, Jeremy, that's such a good description of what exactly goes on there. I mean, as a convention goer, it is so much fun being able to just connect with people, like you say, that we in the same industry, to share stories, to share insights, but just to, socialize with other children's entertainers out there and to hear what works for them. And I would urge any children's entertainer, regardless of what it is you do, whether it's magic, disco, if you're a games leader, face painter, balloon twister, to go to conventions. There is just so much you get out of these.
Well, I would agree entirely, and I think that, let's just take the example of somebody who is a face painter. To add another string to your bow and maybe include a little bit of magic it gives you an edge over your competitors. If you are a balloon twister, we certainly cater for those at the convention, but if you are a balloon twister, again, to be able to add some magic, and it does not have to be complicated. People have this impression that magic always uses huge amounts of sleight of hand, and it's very, very difficult to do. It isn't. Particularly magic for children is usually much more geared to the presentation rather than difficulty. So if you are a balloon twister, a face painter, then I think sprinkling a little magic into your act would add an awful lot to it.
Oh yes, I can certainly vouch for that. I've added magic. I do a 20-minute magic show as part of what I offer, and it's exactly that. I'm no skilled magician when it comes to sleight of hand and all of these things. And I think the key behind this is the aim is not to become a super talented magician. The aim is to entertain children, and by using various methods, and magic is certainly one of them. Now, Jeremy, that brings me very neatly on to the other part of what it is that you do. And tongue-in-cheek, I'm saying the other 50 weeks in the year, because I know Trix doesn't just take a couple of weeks to organize, but the practical magic shop that you've been running for 20 years now. And tell us a little bit more about that. Who are the people you service with that? What does that look like?
When we started 20 years ago, we actually bought a business called Practical Magic. It was a very run-down funny little business. And we did not have a background in magic. And I say we, my wife, Cheryl, and myself. We didn't have a background. I was actually a teacher, and my wife was the school librarian. I was interested in magic and had been since I was young, but I'd never been to a convention. I didn't know a lot about what was going on. But at the age of 40, I decided that I wanted to do something different, and it was either to continue in teaching, but maybe in a more administrative capacity, or whether to leave and do something entirely different. And this funny little business, Practical Magic, came on the market at just the time that we were thinking of leaving, and we decided to take a huge leap and to start running our own business, something that neither of us had ever done before. And it was a general dealership. In other words, it wasn't specifically geared to children's entertainers. We sold all sorts of magical apparatus. We sold mentalism tricks. We sold close-up, as well as children's. But I think my heart particularly was in the children's market. Something else had happened just very few years before we came in, which was that the colossus of the magic world, Supreme Magic, who were known world over for their quality of their children's products particularly, they disappeared off the face of the earth. And magicians were looking for good quality children's props. And I think we saw a niche in the market at that point, and we decided that we would major on that. However, it took quite a few years before we decided to stop stocking virtually anything else and go over completely to children's magic, which is more or less what we do now. We still serve the magic community with things like silks and sponge balls, because children's entertainers use those as well. But if you look on our website, you will see that principally we sell to the children's entertainer.
And I certainly use you as a very a regular supplier for the bits and pieces that, wear out, like you say, those silks. And I use the colouring in book, the magical colouring in book, and they wear out. And I must be honest, Jeremy, your service is amazing. You get in touch, you get the things out very quickly, very neatly packaged, and very reasonable. Now,
well, children's entertainers are just like children, and I don't mean that in any disparaging sense at all. But if as a child you are promised a toy, you want it in your hands in seconds flat. You don't want to have to wait 3 months until you get it. And children's entertainers are no different, or perhaps magicians in general. Once they've decided that they want a particular product, a particular prop, it is their toy. And the faster you get it into their hands, the happier they will be. And so we've always tried, because I used to purchase magic before I was a dealer. The faster you can get it into their hands, the happier they will be, and the more likely they will return to you. And so we tried to build up a very good service, getting stuff out quickly and sending all around the world.
Oh wow! You've just opened up something that I probably didn't know about myself, but you're exactly right. It is exactly that. When you've got a new thing, you're excited about it. You want to do it in this weekend's parties, and it's certainly a great business model, Jeremy. Certainly a great way of running and making sure your customers return. Now, again, I'm coming from, I personally use magic in my act, but I'm thinking for our listeners out there, like we mentioned before, face painters, maybe people who don't use magic just yet. So they get to your website, practical-magic.com, and we'll put a link to your website in the show notes, Jeremy. They get to your website and they go, okay, I'm going to add some magic to my act. Where do they begin? What do they look at?
The first thing I would suggest that they do is, if they look on the home page, you will find a section called Video Dems, Video Demonstrations. Mm-hmm. We started doing these about 8 years ago. There are, I haven't counted recently, there must be 250, 300 on the site. And these are performances, but not explanations, and I stress that. They are performances of most of our products. So you can look and see on our site, oh, I like that, or I don't think that presentation would be appropriate for the group that I'm going to be working with. You can actually see the prop in action and get some sense of how it would work in your show. The reason why there are no explanations, which obviously would be helpful for people, is that websites are open to anybody to come onto, and the secrecy which surrounds magic is important, so that the secrets that we all use are not disseminated to all and sundry. In other words, exposure. So you won't find explanations on our site, but you will find demonstrations. Having looked at a particular video on our site, you then might think, that's what I want. You can then click on the product. There is a link underneath the video. It'll take you straight to the product. You can read about it, and it'll probably give you the dimensions, it'll give you the price, all sorts of things.
That's fantastic. I'm actually on your website as we're speaking through this, and I'm looking at all sorts of things. And I see, Jeremy, you are very often in some of these videos. I'm probably in about 50% of them. I mentioned earlier that we work very closely with an outstanding English entertainer called John Kimmons, who used to work for the Supreme Magic Company. This interview is getting quite circular because we are referencing the Supreme Magic Company again. John used to work for them as a demonstrator and is an outstanding demonstrator. He's also a working children's entertainer. Mm-hmm. Whereas I concentrate on actually running the business rather than going out and performing. Mm-hmm. However, I did have a background, as I mentioned, for 20 years as a teacher, which obviously gives me quite some insight into the mentality of children, which is useful. And so John and I tend to split between us the demonstration of the various products. And sometimes, if we're lucky, we manage to borrow a neighbour's children, and they will stand in as the audience. Sometimes we just pretend there is an audience, but we do try to give a sense of a performance when we do these demonstrations. I absolutely love that, because it really, it makes it so personal. And I've looked at the videos; they're highly entertaining. They really are, because I know you, Jeremy, and I know John, and there's that element of that connection between yourself and your customer, and then also that element of knowing how children react, because children are predictable. They react at certain things, and I think you optimize very well on that, certainly with your teaching background and John's background as a performer, and I think that makes a real winning combination.
Yes, that's very nice to hear. I was going to just say that there is one other thing on the website that you will find, which comes back to the sort of service that we try to offer. When you send out a magic trick, the person who receives it might decide that they want to present it in quite a different way. And we have a section on the site, also on the homepage, called Tips and Hints. And these are ideas, suggestions, alternatives, routines suggested by our customers concerning practical magic props. So they will say, this is how I do this particular. And we put those on the site so that people can look at them and decide if they would like to do it in a different way. So it's simply a service that we offer, which is there for all our customers.
Wow. Again, like I say, I'm on your website clicking through as you are talking, and this is really helpful. I've been buying from you, Jeremy, and I've got a show that I perform and everything, and I've never taken the time to actually go through all the various things that you are putting out there for your customers. So thank you. I'm certainly going to be having a look through here, and I urge anyone who's even got the slightest inkling, if you're already doing magic or toying with adding some magic, go through what Jeremy's put through on here. It is very extensive. It's certainly a great service and very, very helpful indeed.
Well, it's built out over the years, and if you watch carefully, you can see me aging gracefully or disgracefully, whichever way you want to look at it.
It's a wonderful service to the children's entertainers community, Jeremy. So thank you on behalf of everybody. We really appreciate that. It's what a wonderful catalogue of routines and props and alternatives and everything for working children's entertainers. Now, the other thing I know you also do, Jeremy, is not just merely props and routines. I do believe there are some training DVDs and resources available.
Yes, we started doing these again about 8 or 9 years ago. Magic DVDs are a great way of learning because you can actually see, as I was saying, about the videos on our site. But obviously you can go much further in a DVD because you can teach the methods that are being used or examine in more detail the exact way that the thing should be presented. And we started to offer a whole range of different DVDs. Just to give you an idea, we recorded one with a friend of ours called Pat Fallon, which is called Magic for Older Children. Older children can be a slightly more difficult audience. They tend to think that they know it, and certainly you don't want to be presenting fairy stories to them. We produced with an outstanding English entertainer called Terry Herbet, who I'm sure many will have heard of, a DVD called Magic for Under Fives. Again, quite a difficult age range to deal with. Terry dealt with it outstandingly well. We produced one which may be of interest to quite a few of the listeners here, called So You Want to Entertain Children with Magic. Now, the idea behind that DVD was to take you from a position of knowing nothing whatever about doing magic and learning the sort of thing that you need to know. In other words, what age range are you going to aim at? What sort of personality are you going to be? Are you going to dress up? Are you going to look like a traditional magician? What sort of name are you going to give yourself? How are you actually going to advertise what you do? Where are you going to advertise? Do you do a follow-up to the shows that you do? What tricks should you do? So all of those are covered within the DVD. I think over the years we have put out about 10 different titles, and some of them are quite specific in their area. Something like the one I've just mentioned, So You Want to Entertain Children with Magic, obviously has very broad appeal, particularly those who are in one of the allied areas of children's entertainment that we mentioned before, like balloon twisting or face painting.
Wow, that is really, really such a useful resource from, as we were saying, somebody that is maybe not having that part of their act and to want to bridge over, into that another area of entertaining. And that is very thorough, very specific in all the various aspects that you need to consider to be able to make that changeover. That is very helpful indeed.
Just to add to that, we actually recorded that DVD with probably America's most well-known children's entertainer, who is David Kay, otherwise known as Silly Billy. He was over in the country, and we took the opportunity with John and myself to use his talent. So there is a wealth of material that he brought and a wealth of ideas to add to the things that John and I wanted to express.
Wow, that is fantastic. Really, really so helpful. This brings me sort of back again, Jeremy, to where we started off with in the going back to Trix and obviously putting a lot of information and help out for children's entertainers other than a platform for people to connect and share stories. When I want to sort of explore a little bit with you when you are putting your program together. So choosing people to come and lecture, the power presentations you present. What is sort of your aim with that? So where's your goal, and then how do you work that back to be able to have your final product, your program? Sorry.
Okay, that's not the easiest of questions to answer. I think we have a very clear idea the atmosphere that we want to create at Trix. I mentioned earlier that there's a sort of party atmosphere. I suppose we look for people who we think would add to that atmosphere. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we present at each convention 4 power presentations, and 2 of those are loosely what I would call trick-orientated, which I think is self-explanatory, and the other 2 are what I would call theory. In other words, we had one this year about whether it's a good idea to start a blog. It's not trick-orientated. You're talking about the theory of children's entertaining in this particular aspect. So, again, we are looking to find 4 short, pithy, and interesting topics. And we look for some of the best practitioners to present those, and those who know their subject inside out. And I have to say, Colette, that you did one of these power presentations, which was hugely popular yourself.
Oh, thank you very much, Jeremy.
So that's perhaps the nearest that I can say. Mm-hmm. We have had some exceptional talents coming to Trix in the Stix, very well-known entertainers within the magic community, and we'll continue doing that. At the moment, 2016 is decided, and you can look on our website and see who is attending that. We are working at the moment on 2017 because we do need to have a clear idea quite some way ahead as to who we want and making sure that they're available.
Wow. Yeah, it's certainly, it's just, planning for 2017 already is quite surreal, but I can really understand that. And just going back to your power presentations, you spoke about the blog power presentation that Joanne McGowan spoke about, and I'm delighted to share with you, Jeremy, and all our listeners that I will actually be interviewing Joanne as well.
Oh, that's great.
So we will be bringing to our audience, for a lot of us, we internationally, we spread across the globe. Not everyone can get to Trix, so we will be bringing that presentation and that knowledge to our audience as well.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that, because I think Joanne deserves a wider audience. She knows what she's talking about, and that, again, was another very, very popular power presentation.
Exactly. So there's so much more to just entertaining children, or to entertaining children than the actual standing in front of them when you've got your party. And we aim to, cover sort of all the bases, bring all those bits and pieces of information and knowledge and resources that's out there, because there's such a wealth of information that we want to share with everyone on this amazing journey.
Yes, I think that's very important. When you start off in magic, and I think it's important to say this, you tend to feel that simply purchasing a few tricks makes you a children's entertainer, and it doesn't. The props that you buy are simply vehicles. You'll read in a lot of books that it's your personality which is most important. And you might look at yourself and say, but I haven't got a very interesting personality. Well, everybody does. Everybody does have an interesting personality. And the best advice that you can give to anybody is to be yourself and be somebody who the children relate to. If you don't like children, don't come into this, because you are never going to convince the children that you do like them. You'd have to be an outstanding actor. Far better if you're the sort of person who enjoys working with children. That will shine in your shows. So remember that the props themselves are merely vehicles. You have got to be an entertainer first and a magician second. If you go into it for saying that you are going to wow people with your magic, that's probably not the right approach. If you say, I'm going out to entertain, and I happen to be using balloons and face painting and magic, then that is the right approach.
That is such a useful and valuable piece of information, Jeremy. I've gone through a number of courses, online courses and DVDs and books and everything like that, learning and adding to what I do. And that is the sort of thread that runs throughout everything. It is so important because kids can just pick up on that. It's that, what is your motivation?
Children are incredibly perceptive. We tend to think that because they are mini adults, they haven't got the perception that adults have. Oh, yes, they have. Children see through you instantly. And I can say that as a 20-year career teacher, just as I can say it as a children's entertainer or a dealer in children's entertainment. Children will pick up on things incredibly quickly. And whereas an adult might restrain what they wish to say, children are under no such illusions, and they will tell you exactly what they think.
Oh, yes, very much so. And I'm sure our listeners have got experience of that. And so have I. They're very, very, very honest. But also ultimately rewarding, because not only are they honest with when they see through you, but they're also honest with their appreciation and their entertainment.
Very much so.
When they are enjoying it, they let you know. There's no secrets there. Jeremy, I think there is no higher place we can end with other than this very, very useful and valuable advice and piece of information. It's not about what you do. It's not about what you choose to entertain. It's the how you do it. It's that connection you have with the audience and wanting to be there with those children, making them laugh and making sure they're having the greatest time ever.
I agree absolutely. I don't think that there is any better advice that one could give an aspiring children's entertainer than that.
Thank you so much, Jeremy.
Thank you.